is participating in George Siemens and Stephen Downs' course on connectivism and connected knowledge, which is an open source course that they offer to anybody who wants to take it by the University of Manitoba. And if you're just a participant, as I am, then you don't get any credit for the course, but they certainly do welcome anyone to engage in it. And what I've been finding out is there's a tremendous knowledge flow by participating in a course like this, and I found that in this sort of open scholarship of a university course to be quite beneficial. I don't know if others have had similar experiences, but it's been quite useful for me to be engaged in something of this nature.
Good, thank you, Dennis, for that. I do have a slide on open courses coming up, so you've given a nice personal introduction. And of course, George and Stephen, this is the second year they've offered that course. I think they had a few less than the 2,000 they had the first year, but the topic is hot on connectivism, and I'm glad to see it worked for you and shows that one can have a massive course. 2,000 students. I think only 20 or so paid, but and wrote the final papers, but it was a massive kind of exposure. So thanks for that. I'm just going to open the mic for one more minute if anybody else has a comment or question. Okay, I know that you're all thinking and saving your questions till near the end, or you're just getting ready, or you're in the process of texting them in. So do feel free to use the text window as I ramble along. The next thing I wanted to briefly talk about was open access journals. You know, there are a growing number. In fact, there are over 3,000 open access journals listed in the directory of open access journals. I think there's couple hundred in the education area, but you know, across all disciplines there's an interest in open access journals. And I remember when they first came out, they were mostly just online journals, and most open access journals are online, and most of them are only online because paper costs money, and they want to be able to, and postage, and the people want to be able to give their content away to anybody throughout the world, and so oftentimes spending money on paper decreases the amount of money one has for making it more widely accessible. There are a few open access journals that also do print copy as well. But I remember there was quite a prejudice against online journals when they first came out. There was a sense that, oh, nobody's going to read it, you might as well throw it away. None of the big indices like Thomson's ISI actually rate them and give them an impact factor, so don't waste your scientific or your results on an open access press. And so Olaf Zwacky-Richer and I have been doing some early work on the 12 most popular and visible distance education journals. And what we wanted to find out was, is that true that open access journals are cited much less often than the closed proprietary ones, or vice versa? And what is the perception of experts? And then this we surveyed or offered to participate in the survey to all the members of the editorial boards of these 12 largest distance education journals. And we're just analyzing that data right now. The survey just closed a few weeks ago. But and we also used Harzing's Publish Your Parish tool. You can Google that in if you want. And what it does is it uses Google Scholar data to give an impact factor on the on any journal or anything that you type in there. It sees if the journal is listed in Google Scholar, if people, the publication records, and it tells how many articles were cited and how many citations per article or per journal or per issue. And you can also segment it over time. And besides doing the journal, you can also punch your own name as an individual scholar. And I must warn you that it can be a little depressing or ego-inflating fluctuating depending on the results that come out, and so make sure you have thick skin on when you punch your own name in there. But it's fun to punch in one of your colleagues or somebody who maybe you have to evaluate for promotion or getting a tenure review. Anyways, it's a very interesting tool. You can download it for free. As you punch it in Publisher Parish, Harzing, you'll find that. And unfortunately, it only works on Windows, but it's a really fun little tool to play with. And so we punched in all of the journals, and we did it by year. And what we found was that we started in 2003, when it was really the start in the distance ed world of a number of open access journals. And we found that indeed in 2003, the papers, the proprietary journals were having more citations per article than the open access ones. However, we find that as the years go by, that lead decreases until very current research. We're starting to see that the open access publishers' publications are being cited more often than the proprietary ones. Even though the proprietary ones generally are in the distance ed world, have about 8 years on average, been around 8 years longer than the open access ones. So it was gratifying, and we will be presenting the results of this work at CNIE next spring, and also probably look for an open access journal to publish it in. So the point of the study is that not only do open access journals get more exposure and are therefore more valuable to people around the world, they're also they're published more often, and therefore capable of promoting your own individual career to a greater extent. And this is just a little bit of plug for Athabasca University and the International Review of Research in Open and Distance Learning. And from that study, I think we can fairly convincingly argue that it is the world's most widely read and cited distance education journal. And the price is right. I hope that everyone on this broadcast is enrolled. And if you subscribe to Erodal, you get an email telling you the table of contents for each issue as it's published. Oh, sorry, that one was repeated. So finally, a lot of these open access publications, there says, what's the hitch, you know? Who pays for this? Is it really a free lunch, or how does it really work? And I like this quote from Matthew Cockrell, who says that traditional toll access scholarly publishable is sustainable, that is profitable, because the academic research community funnels large amounts of money into it through library budgets. It is not self-supporting. So any kind of publication, whether it's commercial, whether it's open access, the public is paying for it. And if you look at a small university like Athabasca, over $350,000 a year we pay in order to subscribe to the proprietary journal databases. The open access ones we get for free, but we pay $350,000. I would love to be able to cut that right down and only have the open access journals, but in order to do that, you as potential authors have to publish in open access and submit only to open access publications. So I put that as a challenge to you. Maybe you can make a vow for Open Access Week, or call this Open Access Year, that you just will refuse to send your publications to any of the non-open access proprietary journals. So who does pay for them? Patronage, sponsorship by an organization, institute, creating goodwill, and cross-subsidies. That's what Athabasca, that's why we publish Erodal, for goodwill, to encourage people to come and work with us and to study with us, and basically to market our brand, if you like. Author pay, this is what the commercial publishers like to think the future is. The charge it typically is around $3,000 per article, at least in the sciences, and sometimes the the persons or the organizations or the grant that publishes or supports that research will pay for its publication. And the proprietary journals would like to see this kind of a model where instead of you paying for subscription, the authors would pay to have their work published. But the take-up has been rather poor. Most people don't have or don't want to spend $3,000 to have their publication published. Advertising is little used. It's sometimes used in the proprietary journals. Most of the open access journals are trying to squeak by without it. But as you know, from television and radio through to Google, advertising does drive a lot of the free services that are around. And finally, the sale of the auxiliary